Hello, my name is Jacob Ross, and for our um, presentation, we are doing the Turing test. With me, I have.
Michael
Aaron
Brown.
Aaron Kolker. That's my name.
Yep,
So,
this is Aaron.
today, yes, that is his name. Today, we are going to be talking to you about the Turing test and its origins. So, to begin with, we need to first talk about the man who originally came up with the concept, and that would be Alan Turing. Um, and basically, he created the concept of a Turing machine that would basically test to see what exactly, Aaron?
The Turing test is
What's a Turing machine?
the Turing
Yeah, let's
machine.
start with the machine, and then we'll go into the test.
A Turing machine is essentially a mathematical definition of what a computer is. And basically, if something's Turing complete, it should be able to simulate any other computer algorithm, no matter how complicated it is.
Right, and yeah, and then he also helped out during World War II. He basically created one of these machines and used it to crack the Enigma cipher, which the Germans used for communicating back and forth.
Yeah.
So, yay, go British people, helping out in the war.
Woo.
Stifle your enthusiasm, boys. So, moving on, we'd like to say, like, what is the Turing test? And basically, it's a way of seeing if a human were to interact with a computer, it would be able to respond and uh, come up with responses back that are human-like. And the test really decides if it's uh, indistinguishable from uh, human interactions. So, yeah. But, Aaron, like, if you want to explain more, because I know you know a little more on this than I do.
Um, this is just something that I thought I would bring up. There is such a thing called a reverse Turing test, and it's called a CAPTCHA.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like looking into this, and yeah, apparently like that's actually what the like reCAPTCHA is actually an acronym for it's oh god.
Aren't they like trying to like program image recognition software with reCAPTCHA?
Oh yeah. Oh that was. Oh, this is kind of off topic, but just speaking of like of Turing tests, essentially, I mean, reCAPTCHA is essentially a reverse Turing test in that it's designed to actually detect if you're a human rather than
If
like
you are one of those spam bots that go around
yeah,
clicking
it's
a bunch of
designed to like
things.
figure out. It's essentially a kind of more advanced version of the Turing test. And the funny thing is that computers are actually getting good at beating CAPTCHAs, which
That's
means in it's sort of a Turing test in a way, because that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to figure out how good is a person's image recognition. So they give you a piece of scrambled text, and usually the computer is unable to identify it. But now that we have much more advanced deep neural networks and all that stuff, we can actually like some researchers actually just recently published a paper, but reCAPTCHA's new no captcha reCAPTCHA, which works based on image recognition, where they give you like select all the pictures of cats. They actually fed each image into Google image search. They reverse image searched it, and then Google image search was actually able to identify like 85% of the images.
wow. That's pretty
Yeah,
scary.
Google image search beats Google's reCAPTCHA system. That is just it's insane. and it's like the best thing ever. But yeah, so we come into contact with actual Turing tests on almost a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. If you basically are constantly, going on sites that uses the reCAPTCHA system, it's basically, we're going through the Turing tests.
Mhm.
So it's pretty cool. But yeah, and then the other note about Turing test is what they do is they have one person is behind a wall, and they type text-based commands on a computer that asks certain questions. And then on the other side of the wall, you have an actual human and then an actual computer, and it's up to the first human to determine who was the computer and who was the human on the other side of the wall. And then if after 5 minutes of this back and forth conversation, that 70% of the time the first human chooses the computer as being the human, then you pass the Turing test. So, but so with all this reCAPTCHA talk, it'd be interesting to go into.
I just want to point out that CAPTCHA stands for completely automated public Turing test to tell humans and computers, computers and humans apart. Just want to point that out.
Huh.
Yeah. So it is
very literal.
Yeah, but it is essentially a Turing test.
Right. So now going into how like more and more bots are able to beat it, here's different ways that you can beat a Turing test. So
it's kind of like cheating. It's without the computer actually being particularly intelligent. It can use these methods to sort of beat it by cheating.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Like simply putting in delays with the responses, or grammatical errors or spelling errors. Like, people think, oh, then that must be a human. And then there's like the more complex stuff of the artificial stupidity, which basically makes it so that when the computer gives a response, it's in such a simplistic answer or simplistic response that the operator thinks of it as that's a true human interaction.
Right. Or if they let people, like, if they give people enough context as to make the person think, like, for instance, if the person asks the chatbot, how old are you? And it responds with 14, and you ask it, what are you into? None of your business. Get off my back. And you just kind of have it, like, give nonsensical answers. Well, it feels like a dude on the other end of Xbox Live. So.
Right. So it's pretty interesting.
Other things that they've looked into is, for instance, giving way too precise answers. Like, for instance, there's things like Watson, right? Which was, competing on Jeopardy.
Wasn't that IBM?
Applied him, yeah. And if you apply him to the Turing test and start asking him, like, a bunch of questions, it gives answers back surprisingly quickly and, a bit too accurately. Same thing like if you ask Google, what's the weather, and it responds, the temperature is currently 82 degrees. Like, most people don't respond like that.
Yeah.
Most people will say, oh, it's hot out. It's
Right.
cold out. They give generally vague
It's a bit
answers.
cloudy or rainy.
So, and you can kind of trick the user into that. Or, again, tricking the user into thinking that the person on the other end is just a stupid human, rather than a computer that has absolutely no idea what the actual question means or what to give.
Right. So, once, beating it is nice and everything, but let's get down to what we're really trying to achieve here with the Turing test and get into the philosophies of it. It's basically, we're trying to figure out what is consciousness, what is intelligence.
Oh my god, you can beat 1 million CAPTCHAs for about $1,000. Like, you can just pay a bunch of third world Indian children.
All right,
to solve
Aaron.
tests.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay, Chinese room experiment.
So-
What's the Chinese room experiment?
Okay. The best way to describe the Chinese room experiment is you got a dude in a room, right? And he's got a book. And essentially the book has essentially every question you could ask in Chinese and all the responses in Chinese. And, the dude, he listens to the dude outside the room, and he goes through his book. He says, okay, that's what he's asked, and this is the appropriate response, and he reads back the thing in Chinese. Now, note, this dude has absolutely no idea what he's saying, or what the other person's saying, because it's in Chinese. He just can kind of understand the words and, actually look them up. That's about it. Which begs the question, is this person intelligent or not? And the answer is no. He's just,
repeating
responding.
a response.
Yes. Which begs the question, are these chatbots truly intelligent? After all, they have a general idea of what people can ask, and they have a general idea of what the average response should be. So if that's the case, then are these computer systems actually intelligent? What is intelligence? Because, again, is Watson intelligent? Are we intelligent? And that even gives us to what brings even more questions. Like, could a computer truly ever be conscious in the same way that we have mental states? We feel happy, we feel sad, we feel depressed when we stay up at 3 a.m. in the morning trying to fix a project because JavaScript's stupid.
Yeah.
But
a little side note, that was from last night when we were finishing up some code.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it brings up a lot of interesting points that we still have to figure out as mankind.
In fact, we might not even know whether we might not even be able to answer the whole can a computer be conscious, because how do you know something is conscious? After all, we assume other people are conscious. We're just giving them the courtesy that they are self-aware, sentient things. We don't actually know. They could all be robots for all we know.
And I mean,
What are you talking about?
Aren't we all technically machines too?
We're bioorganic stuff.
Body, we're bioorganic machines, and is that really different on a functional level from a computer or something like that? So if a computer can be self-conscious, then maybe we can either.
The Turing test was really only designed to be just a way of just gauging whether it is more of a gauge of natural speech processing, natural language processing, rather than a measure of intelligence. That's why a lot of computer scientists are like, yeah, someone beat the Turing test. I literally do not care.
Right.
It's like arguably what Google is doing with image recognition, or what IBM's doing with Watson Analytics, and things like that. That's arguably more interesting because it's doing deep learning.
Right.
And while a lot of these chatbots are essentially using, the same techniques, they're using, for instance, someone used a system of recurrent neural networks to generate BuzzFeed clickbait titles, and they seemed really real. You can get realistic, you can make a realistic chatbot using a neural network that teaches itself. So they're still using it. It's just
it's
not even a good gauge of natural language processing, because again, natural language processing is all about figuring out it has its place, but it's commonly misunderstood by the public. It's not, and that was the whole idea of the imitation game that Turing was talking about. He's like, well, how do we know the computer is actually intelligent if it's just giving a bunch of how do we know it's just not imitating what a human is doing rather than actually feeling? If we have a robot and one of the tests to see if something is sentient is if it can feel pain. Now, there is a congenital genetic defect that actually makes you unable to physically feel pain.
Right, but let's not get too much into a rant here.
But empathy.